Okay, so we had started with this clock distribution last time. So we will complete clock distribution, also discuss about power optimization techniques. Fine. So in this, so we had discussed clocks. We had discussed the concept of skew last time, and we told that there are two kinds of skews. There is unwanted and useful skews. So unwanted skews are either removed or minimized, and useful skews are actually introduced in the system. And we had defined skew as it is a concept of difference in arrival instance of a signal. And the next classification for skew was signal skew and clock skew. So whenever there is a difference in arrival instant of normal signals, it is called a signal skew. And whenever there is a difference in the arrival instance of the clock, it is called clock skew. And we had taken two sample circuits involving a D flip-flop, and how we told that due to signal skew, what happens is that a wrong value is registered at the D input of the flip-flop. Similarly, we also took example of the same D flip-flop um, for clock skew, and we told that because there is a delay in the arrival of the clock edge at the clock input of D flip-flop, and we have taken the delay 7 nanoseconds. So by the time the active edge of the clock reaches the clock input, by that time the signals A and B have already become invalid. So the instant at which the D input is sampled, at that instant the A and B have become invalid. That is why what is registered by the flip-flop is actually a wrong value. So that is like that. And we start with clock distribution techniques, and we gave this example wherein we have considered a chip, and the clock source is present at point A of the chip, and there is some logic element situated at point B in the chip, and the clock edge has to reach from A to B. So we told that there is no skew at point A, 0 nanoseconds, and because the point B is farthest from A, that is why there is a possibility of maximum skew there. So we also told that usually digital systems, as far as VLSI is concerned, VLSI always prefers CMOS logic family, because CMOS logic family is very famous for minimum power dissipation. Although it may be little bit slower in operation than TTL, but because many a times because there are billions of transistors which are present in inside a chip, that is why to keep the power dissipation within tolerable limits is very important. So usually digital systems employ CMOS logic, and we had computed how for a certain value of VDD and assumed rise and fall times, and with known load capacitance of 1000 picofarad, we had deduced that the dynamic power dissipation for this combination logic would be as high as 2.88 watts, right? And we told that the latest chip which is launched by Apple recently actually claims to have a dissipation of only 6 watts, while there are about 11.8 billion transistors inside the chip. That is why we concluded that clock skew should either be removed or minimized, or it should be made predictable, or it should at least be balanced. So there are four things that if possible clock skew should be removed, that is made zero. If not, um, if it cannot be removed, it should be minimized, or at least it should be made predictable or balanced, right? So there are four possibilities that clock skew ideally should be removed. If it cannot be removed, it should be minimized, or else if it cannot be minimized, it should at least be made predictable or else balanced. Okay, there are four possibilities, and we will see in today's discussion how it can be made more predictable and balanced. So we had mentioned that there are at least two clock distribution techniques. First is the H tree, and second is balance tree, and there are two more. Hmm. So we'll discuss them. Okay, fine. I'll write it here only. Called as driver chain, and fourth is fine. So H tree method, when you actually see how this method goes about, you will actually appreciate why it is called as an H tree method. So some of the features are, first, that H tree method, it makes clock delay more predictable. Okay. Second thing is it is a recursive structure. And I will write two more points after we go ahead with the discussion. Okay. So first I'll make the clock source. This clock source is given to buffer. So please understand one thing, that if I put a bubble here, then it becomes a NOT gate, but it is not a NOT gate, it's a buffer now. Buffer is nothing but a current booster, and it is given to this thing. Now I will start drawing it. Okay, this is an H. Okay, so this clock source through buffer is given to the center of H. Okay, and then Okay, fine. Okay, so this 1, 2 and 3 forms the first edge, and then at the edges of every edge we have another edge. Okay, similarly here again I make another edge, sorry. And then we can take one of the edges and go on making it. That is why I told that it's a recursive structure. Okay, here I have, it is not I actually, it is H. Okay, so it goes like this. Fine. So fine. Now this is the parent edge, and then at the edges of the edge we go on making edge. That is what is a recursive structure. That is what I meant when I told it's a recursive structure. Yeah, so it is not difficult to appreciate that the H tree structure is a recursive structure. Now the question comes, what is there here? So at the end of every edge there can be a logic element. Okay, so what we will do, we will also make a logic element here. Hmm? So we'll make it. Right. Okay, so now okay, so this is called as arm of H tree, and whatever I've highlighted with aqua blue color is called as width of the arm. Okay, so we see here that because the width of the arm is known and it is actually pre-calculated, that is why we say that the clock delays in this structure are more predictable. Okay, now we're at the third point, that as I told you, width of the arm. So we can also write here that the width of the wire used in the arms of H tree can be varied according to the capacitive load at the end of each arm to compensate for the clock skew. Okay, so in the tree we saw that this is called as arm of the H tree and the width of the arm. So the width of the wire used in arms of H tree can be varied according to the capacitive load at the end of each arm to compensate for the clock skew. So I can also call the logic element as capacitive load also. Okay. Logic element or capacitive load. Okay, so depending upon the size of capacitive load or logic element, I am having the freedom of varying the widths of the wires used for the arms. Okay, and here as the size of H tree increases, the clock skew also increases, because we see here that clock is present only at this point. So clock is present at this point and it is getting distributed all over. So we can also write down as size of H tree structure increases, the clock skew also increases. Hence, similar logic elements are grouped together to form a cluster, and this cluster is then placed at the ends of H arm. Okay, this is very important. Okay, so as the size of H tree increases, the clock skew also increases. Hence, similar logic elements are grouped together to form a cluster, and this cluster is placed at the ends of the H arm. Okay, the width of the wire can be varied according to capacitive load at the end of each arm to compensate for the clock skew. Second point. Third point, it makes the clock delay more predictable. It's a recursive structure. Okay, fine. So if I want to represent this cluster approach, what I can do is that I can say here I can have a cluster and then similar logic elements can be placed inside. Say. Okay, this is called as the H-tree approach, and the salient features have been given already here. Okay, now we come to the second approach. Balanced tree structures. So the structure looks something like this. We have the clock source, which is buffer to give it to the tree at this point. And then we have clusters here. Okay, so this does look like a tree, but because it is a balanced kind of a architecture, it is called as a balanced tree approach. And here we have the logic elements inside it. So all logic elements which have similar properties or functionalities are actually put in a cluster, and then this cluster is put at the edges of the branches of this particular tree. Balanced tree approach, and this is a buffer. So these kind of structures are created by placement and route tools. Okay, they're generated by pair tools such that the clock skew is made uniform or balanced. Okay, so as before, the clustering approach remains the same. Okay, so balanced tree structures are generated by placement and route tools and automatically such that clock skew is made more uniform and balanced. Okay, it's very simple. Fine. And then the third approach is yeah, I don't think so I missed any point. Fine. So now the third is driver chain. No. Okay, so in the driver chain method, a chain of inverters or NOT gates is used as shown below. Now you see intentionally there are four NOT gates shown, but the size is different. So I can say that you know let S be the size, or I can say other way. So size is denoted as S, then the largest is S1, then S2, we have S3, S4. Okay, so we can say that S1 is larger than S2, is larger than S3, is larger than S4. Now somebody may say, sir, we have heard about an inverter or NOT gate, but we have never heard about you know differently sized inverters. So we have spoken about the functionality of logic gates. But we have never spoken about the size of logic gates. We have never said that, oh, this is a two input NAND gate, and this is a larger two input NAND gate, and this is the largest two input NAND gate. So size actually doesn't have any importance if we use TTL logic family for implementing a logic functionality. But when we speak about using CMOS logic for realizing a functionality, then size matters a lot. In fact, size is the thing which matters. Okay, so please understand one thing, that if we are considering this thing, that hmm, okay, so here let us consider a MOSFET. So this is an NMOS transistor, drain, source, and gate. Okay, this particular N-channel MOSFET has width W and channel length L. So understand that the area of this MOSFET is given as W into L, and the size is given as W upon L. This is a very favorite Viva question, especially for me, that how do you define mathematically the area and size of a MOSFET? So the area of MOSFET is always a product of width and length, and the size of the MOSFET is W by L. So this is also very popularly known as aspect ratio of the MOSFET. So area of NPN or aspect ratio of NPN you must not have heard, because the area and the aspect ratio of a NPN transistor doesn't affect its performance. But as far as MOSFET is concerned, area and size play a very big role. So I will not go into the semiconductor physics or the mathematical modeling of N-channel MOSFET, but I will tell you that why this particular inverter chain has been showed, in which there are 4 inverters used but having all varying sizes. So understand one thing, that this particular mathematical model exists. So if suppose I assume the current through this particular MOSFET as ID, then please understand what is the relationship between ID and the width and length of a transistor. See now, it's a very complex equation, but I will still write it. Okay, IDS is equal to mu n epsilon ox upon T ox into W by L into VGS minus VT into VDS minus VDS square by 2. So all these terms are actually combined like this. Epsilon ox upon T ox is known as C ox, that is oxide capacitance per unit area, and this particular bracket continues to remain the same, minus VDS square by 2. Some of you might be recalling this equation which your staff must have taught you in second year. Now this is equal to K dash into W by L into the same bracket VGS minus VT into VDS minus VDS square upon 2. Now, this particular equation actually is simplified for all 3 operating regions of MOSFET, namely cutoff region, linear region, and saturation region. So you know that whenever a MOSFET is used for digital applications, it operates either in cutoff or saturation region. It never operates in linear region because we do not want to use MOSFET as an amplifier. We want to use it as a semiconductor switch. So we also know that this equation can actually boil down to this equation if you are going to operate it in saturation region. So uh, for saturation region, this equation actually boils down to ID sat is equal to K dash into W by L into VDS sat square upon 2. Okay, now this particular equation which I have drawn, okay, we clearly see that IDS sat is proportional to W by L. Okay, because K dash and VDS sat are constants. Okay, so that means what? The current carrying ability of a MOSFET in the saturation region is directly proportional to W by L. Okay, so when I say larger transistors, it means wider transistors. Okay, so I can say thus the of a MOSFET in saturation region is a function of its size or W by L ratio. Conclusion number 1. Conclusion number 2. In VLSI technology, size of MOSFET is increased by increasing width W without changing its length L, because L represents fabrication technology or process or node or foundry. Okay, yes, so in VLSI technology the size of MOSFET is increased by increasing width without changing its length, because L represents the fabrication technology or process or node or foundry, and hence must remain constant. Do an example for 28 nanometer process, L is equal to 28 nanometer. Okay, first fact. So for 28 nanometer technology, length L is 28 nanometers. Now, if size of a certain MOSFET is equal to 10, so size is equal to 10 is equal to W by L is equal to W upon 28 nanometers. Hence, the width of this MOSFET, whose size is 10 for 28 nanometer technology, will be equal to 280 nanometers. Now, if I am told, so to double the size of above MOSFET, I must increase the width W to 560 nanometers. Okay, so for example, this is my size S. Okay, and the new size is S dash. So then what I must do is S dash, the new size is 2 into S, which is equal to 2 into 10 equal to 20 is equal to W dash upon L, because L must remain constant. So therefore W dash is 20 into L, 20 into 28 nanometers is equal to 560 nanometers. Okay, so many such calculations will come in the subsequent syllabus. Okay, and the last is hierarchical design. So in the sense, in this particular inverter chain, after this discussion, what I can do is that for all the transistors here, okay, so I can write down the sizes as W1 by L1, W2 by L2, W4 by L4, W3 by L3. And I have to write down here that the lengths of all the transistors are equal to L, but then because I want them to have the sizes as S1 greater than S2 greater than S3 greater than S4, then I have to naturally write down W1 should be greater than W2, that is the width of first should be greater than width of second, greater than width of third, greater than width of fourth. Okay, this is very important. Okay. Okay, that is why we can say here that ID1 will be greater than ID2, that is the current carrying ability, ID3 greater than ID4. It's very important. Okay. Now fourth is that is hierarchical tree method. So you have hierarchical tree method. There is a clock source. It is given to an inverter, inverting buffer having size S1. Then it is followed by level 2 in which both the inverters are having size S2. Then again they are given to another bifurcation with size S3 and S4. Okay, so according to the current requirements of the driven stage, we can actually change the size of inverters. Okay, so here there is a load. Okay, so we can say okay. Fine. So today we have covered the entire clock distribution techniques. Okay, fine. So something wrong. Fine. So we discussed about H tree, balance tree, driver chain method, and hierarchical tree method. Okay. So fine. So next session, I've sent a mail regarding cancellation of tomorrow morning's practical, and also day after tomorrow's practical for Q8, and the lecture at 12:15, because um, BE 2019-20 students practical exams are going on in the college. So all the staff members of ENTC who are involved in the exam, they will be able to take their sessions only when they are not having an exam. Okay, that's all from my side for the day. If anybody has any questions, then they can ask. Otherwise, I'm going to print the PDF and share it.